Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 5 minutes. Okay. I understand 5 Greek minutes might be slightly different to 5 other minutes. However, be that as it may, thank you very much. There are 3 people that I like to thank before I make my closing comments. First of all, I think that it will work, because if I say something really terrible, you have to excuse me. Vem catalaveno Elenica. Is that sort of not saying anything terrible? Okay. So, first of all, I'd like to thank the interpreters. Without the interpreters, I can't understand what's going on. I mean, I can know that there's a lot of passion and a lot of agreements and disagreements, but please, we are very, very bad at thanking our colleagues. Thank our interpreters, please. Secondly, I'd like to thank Angelos as the chair. Usually I sit over there, and if you imagine this situation with FIT being 100,000 members, that's my life for 3 years. So I know what that is like, and I think this is a very important task, and I'd like to thank the chairman. Thirdly, the only reason, or the very first reason why I'm here, the person who actually put Greece on the map of FIT, which you may not have heard, and as a result of your representations in the larger federations and bringing me here for the first time, is Maria Mustafili. Please thank her. Your first representation on FIT in 65 years. So, now let me firstly thank Professor Krimpas for your comment about fragmentation. I think you may not know this, but if you go to a medical conference, there is nothing more different between a surgeon and a physician. Or if you go to a legal conference, you talk to the patent lawyers and the litigants. They are wildly different. No more heterogeneous than our group here. So I think it's important to recognize that differences exist in all professions, but we need to understand why and how we can work together. Nobody was talking about colonizations or joining forces as we talked about. And I think there is a second reply to this being there is a difference between individual specialization, us being more and more specialized, if that is what you choose to do and to survive, versus professional consolidation. They're different things. Doesn't mean that we want the whole profession to be the same, or doesn't mean that we want the whole profession to be wildly different because we now have, I now do localizations into Greek and it's very different from localization from Greek. We'll always be able to find splitters. And thirdly, I think this is a wonderful event. This is why I'm here. This is why FIT exists. It's because we bring people together. It's the diversity that we appreciate, but it's the ability to have the dialogue. And I would remind you of President Quirk, my successor's comment in the letter in the address welcoming you. Only by communicating with one another, with the aid of a translator and an interpreter, and sometimes I think we do need translators and interpreters between us, are we able to learn about and respect each other's differences. And this is very heartening to hear that this celebrations includes all members of Greek and Cypriot associations. And I think this is why we're here, and I'm very heartened to be there, hearing everybody pretty much not restricted to talk about what they want to talk about and why they need to be indifferent, or however the case may be. And Particularly, I want to thank, I've never met you, Ms. Avieta, I hope I pronounce it properly, that you talked about, what you have presented is very important. How do we look at a profession in the way that actually would fit into the new paradigm? So, what can I conclude? What is the role of professional associations? What are the things, what do we need? Now, I know that there are certain things that I would say that you may disagree because you have a very strong union background, and New Zealand used to be like that, but it's not anymore. But I would explain why there's a difference. Do you need to be organized at all? And actually, I have got technology, so let's see where the technology works, eh? Because most of you are like that now. And you think that you can do most of the things you want to do on your own. Oops, hang on, wait a minute. Why do we need to do that? Hang on, wait a minute. So that's why we can't trust technology, because technology doesn't work all the time. Okay. What we want to do, what we want to do is to prevent this from happening to us, right? What we want to do ultimately is to protect the society, protect our national image, and whatever we do, everyone on the panel here is for that, is for the profession. Now, whether we have sound or not, do we have sound? Let's see. No, we don't really have sound.
Welcome aboard this Air Middle-earth flight. Before we set out on our journey, I would like to impart a story of safety. Even if you fly with us often, be sure to keep a sharp eye on the briefing. Make sure your belongings are hidden away in the compartments above or under the seat before you.
All travellers must keep a watchful eye on the lighted signs and follow crew instructions. If the seatbelt sign is on, sit yourself down and fasten your seatbelt quick smart.
Be sure that it's snug across your hips, though not so tight as to lose the feeling in your legs. If you're in a sky couch row, there are special seatbelt instructions in your seat pocket.
It goes on. But we don't have as much of a great story as the nations that you have here. So we have to create some stories. However, but I also appreciate the fact that this is a nation of city-states and you have lots of opinions. But I like to ask all of you, you don't necessarily have the answers. Is this? We all want to improve our profession. This is why we are here. What is the number one thing that you want to solve? If you have a magic wand, if you have the power of Zeus, well, he's not that powerful actually, as you know. Or are we perfect? And then the comment has already been made. Nobody says, oh, I'm very rich and I'm loaded and I don't need to have any problems. So we do have problems. What are the things? The privilege of being a fit president is we travel around the world and hear people complain in various languages. And it's fantastic because we actually summarize the thing. And it's nearly always true. Everywhere. And I happen to be, and I apologize to the interpreters because it all starts with R in English, but it's probably totally not starting with R in Greek. Everyone wants that. Everywhere I go, everyone wants those. And of course, lastly, money. Yeah? So, how do we achieve this situation? Okay. I'm going to put it to you as some assumptions, and some of which is related to particularly our colleagues in the exotic language category. It's very funny because I've always found this unusual. It's a European term, exotic language, because it's actually not very exotic in Afghanistan, because they actually say that all the time. However, okay, members of professional association is not mandatory. We assume that because nobody really going to get the law to pass that we want this. And this may not apply to the refugee interpreters because there's not necessarily a pool there, but how to develop a pool. That at least the professional association is recognized by, thankfully, us, hopefully people who use us, and maybe the authorities, and people who have the money. So one of the things for us, unfortunately, is true, is we all think that we are fantastic, and I don't dispute that. And because we are fantastic, we also think that the society thinks that we are fantastic. The problem is when you run an association, you would work out that your members are very different. The public perceptions of a standard of a profession is based on the least qualified and the least professional of our colleagues, which is unfortunate. I'm going to get to the optimistic part. Don't worry. Okay, we'll stay with that. So there is always a challenge in every association between whether you want to be inclusive, in other words, we are fantastic, don't come near us, or the exclusion part, or the inclusive, which is everybody who does the same thing, please join us so that we can all be better, even though we don't particularly like you. And I think in order to raise standards, we have in a way, a moral obligation to have open membership, or at least a welcoming membership. Now, clearly defined categories, hopefully that will make some sense to allow for the differentiation within the family of the differences and the heterogeneity. Now we always want to talk about the government, because whenever I'm in the Mediterranean country, everybody wants more rules and more regulations and stronger governments.
Sorry, but you seem to become more Mediterranean because it's not 5, it's 10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay, I will go very quickly. I apologize. Okay, all right, okay, coffee time. Right, everybody wants laws, but there are problems with laws. Okay, we all know that. We've already talked about the problem with the laws. So, we need to have, somebody mentioned about complaints and disciplinary procedures. We need to find ways to do that, because if we cannot eliminate practitioners who fail to meet the standards, then we will never be able to achieve a professional standard. And for outreach, somebody talked about sign language. Yes, very much important, how to engage with the rest of the profession. Sign language interpreters, spoken language interpreters, different groups, terminologists. I know they are strange people. You may not want to talk to them. Subtitlers. Wow, my God. Okay, so, but what about, not just about us now? What about the future? How do the next generation comes from? We need to find an attractive environment to generate interest to the next generation. Ethnic and exotic languages, how do we work with them? Second language development, training and research. And finally, that hopefully, this is a graph that I have. A lot of people have copied it, and I will allow people to copy it because this is how I see it. Us as professional association is not being at the center, but without any of those parts, we don't work. We have no meaning. We only have meaning when there are practitioners, when there is authority to authorize on the translation or the qualification. We have training, education, and we have a commercial or civil duties, government and agencies. Without that, we don't exist. The problem with unions, not the problem with unions, unions runs a slightly different context. Oops. Because unions' relationship is that. Very few unions around the world, I hope, I'm correct and I'm happy to be corrected, works with universities or work with accreditation agencies. There are a few, not many. France is one of those exceptional countries, but otherwise it's different. So I like to make a distinction between professional association and union. And on that note, because I've exceeded my time, I will go to my last slide. What are the main roles? Development, which we talked about, the SWOT analysis, ongoing training, professional issues, guidelines and practices, and disciplinary process. and address concerns over professional conduct. That's all we're here for, and I thank the chairman.
Ευχαριστούμε πολύ.